So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success story series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and their challenges and what's really driving them forward. So this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Richard Sharp, who's the owner at the Sharp Agency. So Richard, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. If you'd like to introduce yourself, the Sharp Agency, what you do, how you do it and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, so I said I'm Richard Sharp. I'm one of the owners of the agency. There are three of us that own the agency, and we have done with the agency been going for 15 years now. In terms of the agency, we're a brand performance agency. Client base, we tend to work with board leaders of brands that are looking for change. For example, they may have a brand that needs to change because maybe it's no longer as relevant as it used to be, or maybe they need a campaign to bring in more leads. Other things about the agency, we're also a B Corp, and for the past 3 years, we've also been a top 100 agency to work for. In fact, we've placed in the top 10 twice in those 3 years.
Wonderful.
We have quite a unique approach, or should I say a unique strategic creative approach to the way that we work. And this pays dividends for our clients in that we use co-creation with our clients, and we co-create with their customers, prospects and stakeholders as a kind of central methodology to our strategic approach. And fairly recently, this way of working also attracted the interest of Lancaster University's Psychology of Advertising department, who've done a study on our way of working. And the outcome was that they found that brand and marketing work that uses co-creation to build its strategies is more successful than when it's not used, which we were quite relieved about. So that was good. In fact, we actually have a white paper of the study, and we've got the full study and results as a white paper. So if anybody listening would like to read it, I'm sure you could get my details off Chris, and I'd be happy to send you a copy.
Brilliant. That sounds fascinating. Just fascinating. So I'd like to read it. So I'll make sure I'll get a copy.
I'll send you a copy, Chris.
Please do. I'll get a copy, and we'll make sure we got your details at the end. So anyone else would like to crack up. So just if we look back a little bit, Richard, to start with, if you tell us a little bit more about your background specifically, how you got into business and why this particular one.
Yeah. Well, I suppose my background is initially art related. I absolutely loved art, and that kind of took me to art college. And then I did a degree in communication design. And it was here that I really developed, I guess, a love of strategic thinking and a real understanding and love of how innovative ideas can really change things. And kind of from then onwards, I kind of worked in a number of agencies around kind of the North. I had a role that had a bit more of a kind of global slant to it. And eventually became the executive creative director of an agency called TBWA over in Manchester. So working on lots of brands, globally and across the UK. But always I had this kind of yearning inside to start an agency. And that kind of came to fruition 15 years ago. It was one of those things you've got it in you, you feel you want to do it. The timing feels right, you meet the right people, the team comes together, and before you know it, suddenly you've started. You sat at your kitchen table going, oh, hell, here we go. But I think as part of your question, I think what I love about this business is that I really love working with clients to help them achieve the changes they need to make. So whether that is, making their brand ultra relevant and stand out in the marketplace, or whether it's creating performance campaigns that bring them lots of new customers. To me, that's just a wonderful and enjoyable way to spend the working day. And I just feel really lucky that I was really good at drawing at school, and really that just brought me to where I am now.
Wonderful. I can see the passion just glowing. So that's absolutely wonderful. It's great to meet people where they're really totally in line with what they do and having a business of what they do, because it's a tough gig in itself, isn't it? So, I mean, if we're doing something tough as it is, and not really enjoying the core of what we do, then that's
yeah.
pretty
Oh, we're lucky we don't have to do that. Yeah, yeah.
wonderful. And I'm sure there's been some challenge, but what over these last 15 years, what have been some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome, would you say?
Oh, do you know, there is one, and it was interesting. You were talking earlier about COVID and how
Yes.
you guys kind of did what you ended up doing, and I think there was one aspect of our business that was hit really hard during COVID. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a unique way of working, and when we I guess first realised that things were getting really bad with regards COVID, we were actually running co-creation sessions for a client in South Africa. And at the time, all co-creation was in person. We were in
Yeah.
rooms, meeting rooms with people.
Yeah.
And obviously, we soon realized that face-to-face would no longer be a way to work in the immediate future.
Yes.
And at the time, for us, that was like, that it felt a bit of a disaster. It was like, oh no, because all our co-create sessions were in person. And it was also a big part of our agency income. And so we were in Cape Town. It was kind of weird because it felt like the world was falling apart, and we were sat in sunny Cape Town with a day off. We'd done all our co-creations, we'd worked on the results, we kind of done all we could, and we're in the sunshine. And we walked up at one of the mountains in Cape Town, literally trying to figure out what to do. And by the time we got to the top, we had an idea. And the idea was, how do we do co-creation virtually?
Yeah.
How do you do it through a screen?
Yeah.
And we found a way to do it. And it was a mixture of like a Zoom call like this, but with some really interesting, I guess, software that we found online. Just like it just presented itself just when we needed it, as things often do. And we brought them together and found how to do it. And so, it's pretty unique. And we now do actually lots of global co-create sessions from the comfort of our laptops, which is great. And the other part, which was also pretty good, which was a bit of a few moment, is that literally 10 minutes after our flight took off to bring us home from South Africa, South Africa closed its borders.
Wow.
So we got out just in the nick of time, got home, figured out what to do, and those virtual co-creates were fantastic for us through COVID.
Brilliant.
Absolutely fantastic, yeah.
That it's funny how often things, we have to make a change, and then we find that change is good enough. I mean, it's funny you say that, because I can't remember the actual date I landed, but I was in Canada skiing, and I remember coming back, and I sat in Vancouver airport on the way back, and people were starting to wear masks, and and it was only within a week that we went into lockdown, I think, and it was just not really. I remember not really taking it seriously. It was just this is people being a bit over dramatic and all this sort of stuff, and it's I mean, how we've changed. So and so whether whether it's relevant to that or other things, what are the biggest learnings you've had about growing a business, whether it's from the challenging side or the successes you've had? What are your key tips, would you say?
I think sort of learnings. I think, and then maybe this is just a thing where you get to a certain age and you start to accept yourself for who you are.
Yeah.
Because I think when I speak to youngsters coming into our industry, I spend a lot of time doing portfolio reviews and get involved in things where I give them a time where we're helping students improve their work and some great initiatives. If you've not heard of the School of Thought, that's an incredible initiative where young creatives are put through a 12-week program that every single week they're in a different agency, getting a brief and presenting 3 days later and then getting feedback. It's absolutely brilliant. I love taking part in that. But I think what I find is, that accept yourself for who you are, because comparison with others, I think, is a perfect way to derail yourself. There's always somebody who's more successful, funnier, whatever, and I think that, they are who they are and you are who you are. And I sort of think that it is important to work on constantly becoming a better version of yourself in the most ethical and morally way that you can. Because we're also individual, and I think you've got two choices, haven't you? You can enjoy your individuality and roll with it, or lay awake at 3 p.m. stressing about it, 3 a.m. stressing about it. So you work night shifts maybe, and I kind of, and I suppose it's the same for business. You know, your business will never be all things to all people. You know, I think it's important that you find the truth of your business and build around that in everything you do. Because actually, in essence, that is what the brand of your business is.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. We often do an exercise with clients looking at what makes them different, and because not enough businesses know what makes them different enough to market that and make that the thing. And part of it is like looking, okay, what's your assets? What's your good stuff? Okay, well, we happen to be good at this. But also part of the exercise is looking at your liabilities and turning them into assets. So one of the things we feel we are weak in, how can that be a strength? And the obvious or a fairly obvious example would be, well, we're small. You know, we our competitor is big, we're small. Well, small is flexible, fast changing, probably more reactive. So in most liabilities, there's also an asset that can be found.
Yeah,
brilliant. And then so, and I mean, I'm just interested. Is that part of? I mean, I'm interested in the sort of the co-creative aspects of what you do. How does that work with your client? That sounds very interactive with your clients. That must be very rewarding for them, I would imagine, as well as you.
It is really. I suppose it was kind of born out of some thinking many years ago when you work with, as an agency, you work with very, very different clients in different sectors. And you start to think, well, why would their customer or prospect buy from them, not anybody else? And we thought, well, why don't we do some work with their actual customers,
right,
and see what we learn? So it was kind of embryonic at the first when we first did it, and then we started to realize there was something really in this, because the way that we manage the sessions, I mean, they've become like really, I guess, really tight. The first one we did was all day long with the NHS in Sheffield University, and that was crazy. Now they're 2.5 to 3 hours, and with about 20 people. So we've narrowed it down to lots of different tools, if you like. It's probably like we may use 3 or 4 tools in a session, depending on what the client requires. So it's very bespoke how we put it together, depending on what their needs are and the problem that we're trying to solve. But then the participants in the session are vital. So if it was more a B2C brand, it could be customers of that brand and non-customers of the brand as well. So you get that mix.
Brilliant.
And we work through a series of sessions, and we get to a particular point. And what the session does is all the time, it's narrowing things down until we get to what we call like the one thing, where we've actually got consumers in a room actually developing ideas and strategies with us, but narrowing it down to what's this one thing this brand should be saying or doing for me to want to buy from them.
Brilliant.
And so that's in essence how it works. And we've really honed that over the years. We've really honed how we moderate those sessions. And like I say, we can, as well as in the room now, we can do it virtually. We have clients where obviously they've got staff globally, and we'll co-create with their staff, and their staff are in lots of different countries, particularly with B2B brands. You tend to work with the stakeholders or the team within. And then our strategy team take those findings, work on them, get a really refined proposition, and then we go into the creative work. So I guess my other role that I didn't mention with the agency is I'm the creative director. And it's important to me that the creative work that we do is built off a really robust strategy.
Yeah.
So we work really hard. We've got a great strategy team here, led by Mandy, who's one of the partners of the agency, who's also our strategy director. And they develop these kind of incredible strategic insights for us, all coming from the co-creation, that we can then develop the creative work off the back of. So whether that is a new brand for a company or a rebrand, or whether it's a campaign to bring them in more customers or build awareness, whatever that is, it's always working off a strong strategic base, which we then refer back to all the time when we're doing the creative work. Is it answering the proposition? Is it answering the proposition? So everything we do is very tight in terms of that level of detail, and ultimately, the results are really strong for our clients. So it's a process that we've developed over the years, and it's working really well.
Fabulous. You're probably aware we were a business coaching organisation. Now, I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's been the biggest influences on you?
Interesting question. It's I suppose in a way, and it may be. It may be that having been to art college, I think one of the things I would say is that I probably take learnings from everyone and everywhere.
Yep.
I think one of the things that they teach you at art college is you learn how to find inspiration from everywhere, because you're looking for it all the time. So it's this constant search for inspiration. And one of the things that they really encourage you to do is always try new things, have new experiences.
Great.
And by doing that, I think you learn all the time. Yep. I think it's about, I don't know, you're sat in the airport and you speak to the person you probably would never speak to, because who speaks to anybody in airports, and suddenly you've learned something new from somebody. I've had conversations on trains that have changed the way I think about things.
Yep.
And so I suppose my coaches they're just experiences and the people and just learning all the time. I think people are really interesting. I've read a lot about, people are no longer with us, so your presidents, say people like Benjamin Franklin. I mean, how that man had so many ideas in his lifetime, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
He didn't have the internet, he didn't have all these ways to make things happen really quickly. But by reading that, and then you kind of imagine, sometimes I would imagine in a situation, what would Benjamin Franklin do?
Really?
And you go, and you're referring back to somebody who obviously you never met, and obviously people who you have met, and you're just learning from everything around you. But I think kind of logging all that and then be able to draw on it is kind of my life coach or my best coach. I don't know, whatever you would call it.
Brilliant. I think I mean, I think it's great being open. That I think the phrase I remember reading many years ago, which I love, which was the mind's like a parachute; it only works when it's open. And being open to those messages, because there's so many learning opportunities daily. I mean, I think they say we're party to something like 14,000 marketing messages every day or something, and you can either block them out or you can actually allow them in and learn from them.
And I think I know, and little story that I kind of talk when I talk to students and say, if you want to learn something from somebody but you don't know them, don't be afraid to ask them.
Yes.
And I had it was a period I was working as a designer. I've been working a few years, and I kind of I'd lost my mojo a bit. And there was a company, really famous company called Pentagram, big design agency. They started in London and they got really big. And there was a particular designer called Alan Fletcher, who to me was just like, godfather of graphic design. I absolutely loved him. And I was thinking, I wonder if I spoke to Alan Fletcher, he could help me, just get my mojo back. And they were, how is this going to happen? And I kind of asked around and eventually got hold of Alan Fletcher's phone number.
Brilliant.
And so everybody had left the office, and I was in the office on my own. And I'm thinking, you're putting it off, aren't you? You don't want to pick up that phone. You don't want to dial that number. And so I kind of dial the number eventually, and I'm sitting there listening. And anyway, the phone answers, and this voice goes, "Hello," and all I can hear in the background is just this like jazz music. And I'm thinking, this is exactly as I imagined Alan Fletcher's life would be. And I said to him, hi, Alan. I'm a designer from up north, and I'm all really nervous. And there's this long pause, and he goes, "Oh, I didn't realise they had designers up north."
Wonderful.
And we got chatting, and I said about my mojo, and he just said, "Well, think about this, creativity's like that." And we had this lovely chat, and then the thing is, at the end, he said, I talked a bit about liking his poster design. He said, "Oh, are there any posters you particularly like?" And I said, "Oh, there's two posters of yours I absolutely love." And I told him what they were, and he said, "I think I've got a couple of spares." So he said, "Give me your address, and if I find them, I'll send them to you." And a couple of days later, these two posters arrived, which I had framed, and I now have them above my stairs at home.
Lovely.
So, like every morning when I come down the stairs, I see those two posters, and I'm reminded of, if you want to do something, you want to speak someday, just like pick up the phone and go for it. And that's kind of a little story that I talk to students about that I speak to.
Love that. Absolutely love it. I was told a long time ago, and it was really interesting, was that the idea that, don't be afraid to talk to the most influential person in the room.
Yeah.
And often they'll welcome it because nobody wants to talk to them because they're thinking the same thing. It's like they're being ignored because everyone's too fearful of doing it. So it's like you can actually help that person out by having a conversation. And I never thought of it like that. And as soon as that, it really changed that in my mind, just to say, because ultimately, however successful we become, we're still just people, aren't we? That's the real truth. And from any of the sort of experiences you've got and the things you've done, do you find yourself using any favourite quotes or sayings on a regular basis?
Well, there's definitely one for me now, and it kind of it's a quote that I've got written on a post-it note and I have it attached to my computer. And a few years ago, I was listening to a podcast, and the podcast was called Bonfire of the Soul, and there was an individual speaking on it called Duke Stump. And amongst other things, Duke Stump used to be the marketing director of Nike.
Right.
And incredibly inspirational guy. And he's chatting away. And then he just said this one sentence. And I just thought, flipping heck, that is so good. And the sentence was, "What does the world or your community need most that you are most qualified to deliver?" And so, yes. That is brilliant. And in terms of owning the business or just you yourself, to think about what the world of the community needs most that you are most qualified to deliver. And I think as a business owner, as an individual, as anybody, I'm building a brand. When you're talking out earlier about working with your clients to build their brand, is what are they most qualified to deliver against what the world needs, and I kind of love that, and I just love the essence of it. It kind of got me right where it hurts, that when I heard it, and just scribbled it down and went, right, just superb. And that inspires me every day. So I'm posted out on my screen, my posters above the stairs, these things around me. Keep inspiring.
That's wonderful. There's a diagram comes to mind of quite a visual person, and I think and it's of the Japanese word ikigai, I think, which is purpose, and it's about what the world needs, what I'm good at, what I can get paid for, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to agree. Yeah, no, ikigai is absolutely that sentence, isn't it? It totally chimes with it.
Yes. Yeah, and the other thing that comes to mind, it's probably even more at its basis level. I heard a guy called Sir Alan. Oh, I can't think his name. Sir Alan. Is it Alan Terry? Anyway, first Welsh billionaire. So he's the first Welsh billionaire. I'll remember his name before the end of the clip. And we persuade. He built and owns Celtic Manor. If you know Newport, the big hotel.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Yeah. So he was born there. So at the bottom below the main hotel, there's a sub part of it, which is the old hospital. And that's where he was born. So he bought that and built the hotel. But we asked him to come over. We had one of our conferences there, and he came over. He lives in Ottawa now, and he flew in. And somebody asked him, he took a couple of questions at the end of speaking, very short. He doesn't do a lot of speaking. And he made most of his money originally in the sort of micro electronics world of the 80s. He's sort of an Alan Sugar, but probably 10 times more successful. And so one of the audience said, "Can I just ask what's your secret to business?" It's probably a very difficult thing to answer, but what's your secret? Yeah. And he literally just said, "Well, look, this may sound simple, but I asked my customers what they wanted, and I got it for them."
Yeah.
And business can be as simple as if you add to it what I'm good at, when he was clearly good at sourcing things.
Yeah.
that just put everything together. And he said, I didn't need to be clever and say the future of electronics is this. They just said,
Yeah.
we need a smaller phone or whatever it was that they were looking at. And
Yeah.
it's just sometimes it's just the simple stuff that works, isn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting. So I once met the founder of Pets at Home, and he did a talk in the agency I worked at before we started Sharp, and I chatted with him afterwards, and I said, you know what, how have you done all this? And he said, well, I just know how to run a pet shop. And
Brilliant.
he didn't see it as this like
No,
huge thing everybody else saw. He just go, no, I'm just running a pet shop. So
brilliant.
that's what it started, and it was still that. And I thought, yeah, that's just so people like this are brilliant, aren't they? They always say awesome things.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
absolutely, and again, going back to what you said, it's just being open to that learning, isn't it? If we're listening,
Yeah.
have a radar open on all the time about what people are saying and how valuable it is. Um,
Yeah.
and Richard, I'm keen to know what you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far.
Well, yeah, I suppose I think I would say that comfort zones are for getting out of.
Yep.
I think I think I'm probably as guilty as anyone else for finding a nice groove in a comfort zone and jollying along. And I'm always really happy when I'm in my comfort zone, there's no doubt. But I think what I have learned over the years is that when you get out of your comfort zone, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I suppose, whenever I'm feeling too comfortable, I kind of worry about that now. Well, not worry, but go, right, okay, what do I
Yes.
need to do? What do I need to do? So yeah, that would probably be that thing of learning when I know I'm in my comfort zone, and that being a bit of a prompt to do something.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so easy to be in it and not realize, if you know what I mean. It's just sort of it just
Yeah,
becomes this easy way of being.
yeah,
And we don't necessarily, I don't think, move into it, or it's how it is. And I guess the more we master things, the
yeah,
more we're creating a comfort zone around us, aren't we? It's sort of, if I'm at one point
yeah,
outside it, if once I've mastered that and become comfortable with it, I'm back
yeah,
into the comfort zone. So I suppose, but unfortunately, I think, I mean, it's great that you feel like that. Unfortunately, I find and unfortunately work with people that their comfort zone is actually a discomfort zone, if that makes any sense. They're staying in it, but it ain't actually that comfortable, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
nuts situation I find often. It's just like,
That
well,
is a bit of a nuts situation. Yeah,
yeah, I'm unhappy, but I don't, I'm not going to change, sort of thing. And it's just like, well, that's nuts. But I guess
yeah.
again, that's the human condition.
I suppose maybe it's that thing of not knowing where to go or what to change.
Yes.
But because I suppose comfort zones are not that exciting, are they?
Yeah.
And but then once you've kind of gone, oh, do this, we're going to do that, and then you go, oh, here we go,
Yep.
and suddenly everything's exciting. You're chasing after this next thing that you're looking to do, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But whilst you're doing that and you've stepped outside your comfort zone, you kind of feel quite alive, don't you? And that's
Absolutely.
quite enjoyable. And you always learn from everything. So even if you do something and okay, it didn't work out, we've had plenty of those in the last 15 years. I could probably write a book on those, I'm sure. And that we learn from every one of them.
Yeah.
Everything that didn't quite work out still was of massive value to those things that have.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess looking forward a little bit, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
Well, I guess the joy of always evolving our business and keeping it relevant to the needs of our market is the future. We kind
Yeah.
of we look at that a lot. Myself and Darlene and Mandy and Kat, our client services director. We talk about the vision of the agency. We've got a good vision, but we're constantly looking at it and developing it
Yeah.
so it becomes relevant. And I think the thing is with what we do, there are a lot of agencies. If I'm
Yeah.
a client out there looking for an agency, I'm like, millions of these flipping things, you
Yes.
know? So, the challenge for us always is we've got to stand out.
Yeah.
But we've got to stand out and be true to ourselves in the work we do and the way that we do it. That's important, and our B Corp accreditation has had a really big influence on how we use our business as a force for good.
Great.
And I think we probably already were, and then we started to feel, I guess, an empathy with what B Corp was about, and so we entered into looking at it, and then we went through the whole process, which is a very long and very difficult and a very changing process. And then you come out the other end, and we're really proud that we've got that B Corp accreditation.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going to business right now, Richard?
Well, I think if you've got a passion for something,
yes,
it's coming back to that earlier quote, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you believe you can deliver it to the benefit of others in a superior or different way than anyone else, then what are you waiting for?
Brilliant.
Get started. I think, but you need that clarity of purpose.
Yes.
Because that's what keeps you going when the going gets tough.
Yeah.
I meet people and they want a business and they go, I want to own a business because you can make lots of money. And I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't know. There are probably people out there who start businesses just because they want to make loads of money, and they're probably all on Instagram and whatever, telling us how you can do it in 5 easy steps. But I think you've got to feel it in here.
Yeah,
I think starting a business, it's in there. It's in here too, but I think if it's just in there, I think it's going to be a whole lot harder than if you feel it in your heart and there's something you really want to do and deliver in a certain way. And I think our business, and when I talk about co-creation, the way we work, that comes from the heart of a way of doing things that we know is successful for our clients, and that's such a purpose and a passion, definitely.
Yeah. No, that makes absolute sense. And if you started again, is there anything significant you might do differently, do you think?
This is a very short answer. I'd do it sooner.
Do it sooner. That is quite a few people say that. It's just like, I wish I'd done it earlier. I wish I'd done this and made this decision. And brilliant. And obviously, as I say, your passion for what you do clearly shines out. So that's not surprising in many ways. And finally, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
Oh, I think I'd tell myself to have more belief in the fact that those closest to you want to support and guide and help you. That you don't have to think you can have to do it all on your own.
Yeah.
I think that would be advice. And actually, in fact, that's probably something I might have to remind me, even my modern day self sometimes.
Fair enough. I think that's very sad words. It is often, we look to it's all about us, not necessarily an egotistical way, although the definition of the word, but it's not like it's just we think it's us and our resources are the only ones, but you've got great people around you that want to support you and do their bit.
Absolutely.
Job of a great leader is recruiting, rewarding, and drive, and leading great people, isn't it? And we'll let them do those things for their benefit too. Brilliant. Well, Richard, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, and it'd be great to swing by again in another 6-12 months and just see what the next iteration of your business looks like. But in the meantime, for anyone that was interested in getting in touch with you, look at maybe that white paper or your business itself, what would be the best way to do that?
My email address is richard@thesharpagency.co.uk.
Brilliant.
So if you just email me, and I'll whatever any questions, or if you want to see the white paper, just let me know and I'll do everything I can for you.
Wonderful. Well, once again, thank you so much for your time. It's been really fascinating to talk to you, and best wishes for the next stages of the growth of the business.
Well, thanks, Chris. I've enjoyed that. Brilliant. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.